Welcome to the Confident Retirement Podcast. How confident are you when it comes to life's biggest money decisions? What is real financial peace and how can you get it? Chris Flaming and Mark Peachy are the founders of LPF Advisors in Sarasota, Florida. They bring together the brightest minds to show you how to have a more confident financial future. They empower listeners with common sense concepts and financial wisdom. And now, here are your hosts, LPF Advisors. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Confident Retirement Podcast brought to you by LPF Advisors. I'm your host here, as always, Chris Flaming. And the information that we are providing on the show is for information purposes only. It's not necessarily my opinion or the guest's opinion or that of our firm. It's general education and not customized to anyone's particular situation or investments. Nothing should be construed as financial, tax, or legal advice. You should consult with your own professionals and advisors in order to do that. Wow, all in one breath. So today I have the pleasure of welcoming Kristina Caballero to the show. She is a Florida-based attorney specializing in personal injury, medical malpractice, and wrongful death. She has a tenacious approach. We're going to talk about that a little bit today, and it's my pleasure to have her on. Kristina, thanks for being here. Welcome to the show.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, and I already verified that is her actual view out of her window back there, which I'm very jealous of. Maybe we'll have her play. Are those bongos?
That's all my husband.
Okay, never mind. Right. So we won't be playing those later. All right, that's okay. So you have an interesting history. I was kind of checking you out online, not stalking you, just checking out your professional background. Maybe you could take me through briefly kind of what led you to where you are today.
Sure. I started off the majority of my practice in New York, actually. I went to law school down in Florida, and my professor convinced me to take the Florida bar. I was like, why am I going to take the Florida bar? I'm from New York. And I'm so glad I listened to her because I wound up meeting my husband while I was in law school. And we decided to move back to Florida. Actually, it'll be coming up a little over 2 years ago. And I'm so glad I did because I would have not have sat for the bar again. Yeah. And having the two licenses really helped my career because my firm that I spent the majority of my time with had offices in New York and Florida. So I always got to do both. And it was always nice to escape to Florida when the weather wasn't so cooperative in New York.
Right.
But
go ahead.
Originally, I started out doing family law. And it's just a coincidence that I wound up in personal injury and I fell in love with it.
So that's a great segue because why don't you go a little bit deeper on that? How did you choose the area of law? So you found out that you loved it, but what was it about it that drew you to where you knew that was your calling?
Sure. So I was actually a friend of the family had recommended an attorney who was looking for a family law associate. Mm-hmm. And I sent my resume over and her husband happened to see my resume, who was a big personal injury attorney in New York. And he's like, I really need someone. I'm stealing her from you. So he called me and he's like, hey, you want to work in the Empire State Building doing personal injury? And I just started. I was like, okay, I'll give it a try.
Right.
And I fell in love with it. I didn't think personal injury would have such a human connection. Mm. And it really does. You get to really know your clients and make a difference in their life. And it's less contentious than what people think. Family law can be very, very rough. And personal injury, you fight with the defendants, but we play nice for the most part, but we push where we have to.
Yeah, so was it the human connection? Is that really the part that attracted you the most versus other areas of law where you have that human connection component?
Correct. I can't just sit and read documents and contracts all day. I like interacting and speaking with my clients and getting to know them and seeing their improvements and how they've overcome obstacles and helping them prepare for their future. Because sometimes when an accident happens, you're very short-sighted. You don't think, okay, I need to do X, Y, and Z. And having that knowledge and being able to help people really, it makes me happy.
Yeah, I could see that. That's kind of draws in with, in my case, with what I do, where people come to us with certain issues or problems that they want solved. And then the satisfaction of being able to walk them through a process where they can realize dreams that they have. It's indescribable.
Yeah.
So I'm curious if you could maybe go back in time and give the younger Kristina some advice
something you know now that you wish you knew when you were younger, even though you still are young, maybe what would that be?
Well, thanks. I'm going into my 10th year practicing. So, but what I would tell younger Kristina is don't box yourself in to one thing. Have an open mind. Try everything. Ask questions, as many questions, and learn as much as you can, because life will surprise you. You never know what you'll wind up liking.
Right. Or what you'll go into. That was certainly the case for me too, with a psychology background. And now I give people advice on what to do with their finances. Okay. So what do you think is maybe one of the biggest misconceptions that people have about what you do or what you can do for them?
Sure. I'd say one of the biggest misconceptions is that a lot of personal injury attorneys get a bad rap of being an ambulance chaser, always looking on the hunt for the next quick buck. And that's really not the case, especially with medical malpractice cases. Those cases can take a very long time. People don't realize how much work goes into working up a medical malpractice case. And a lot of times clients think that an attorney can just wave a magic wand and get them money really, really fast and make all their troubles go away. And I wish I could do that. And I wish that money could help fix things. People in the law, you say you want to make somebody whole. And with personal injury or medical malpractice, unfortunately, that's not the case. Sometimes you sustain really debilitating injuries and you're never going to be the same, and money isn't going to help that. So you have to, plan for your future and allocate that money in a way that'll help make you as whole as possible.
Yeah, you can move on with your life and the challenges that you might have. Okay. So maybe describe an ideal client for me, like not a personality type, but an ideal person that you like to work with.
An ideal client would be someone who listens to what their attorney's telling them. We've had clients, we like, don't post stuff on social media, be careful what you're doing, because sometimes there will be surveillance. There'll be investigators following them around, and, something so innocent could come off as, oh, you're really not injured, and cause big problems and completely derail your case. And another characteristic that I like is when a client is really when they put their trust in me. We're the experts. We have been doing this for so long. And a client who remembers that we're on the same team. A good recovery for them is a good recovery for us. So having faith in your attorney really makes the job easier for everyone.
Okay. And I'm going to kind of ask you about expectations here in a little bit, but maybe walk me through your process, like a common steps or process that you take someone through in a case for people that may not know or understand that.
I think it's very important to have open communication and be very upfront and frank with your clients. Put everything out on the line. And I think it's also very important to meet with your client, whether it be in person or via Zoom. There's some attorneys who they'll just take your basic information and you won't hear from them for months at a time. So I think it's very important to have your client involved, to keep them abreast as to what's going on and to explain. So there's different stages of a personal injury case. The first would be the intake, is getting to know your client, getting to know everything about them. And it's very important that you disclose everything to your attorney. Sometimes we'll have cases where a defense counsel will ask during a deposition, like, oh, so when you had an accident 2 years ago, and you never told me that. If you would have told me prior to, there's ways, it's not a big deal. But when we're prepared and have that information and we disclose it first, it doesn't look like we're hiding anything. So trying to get all that information during the intake process and working with your client to get all their medical information for what treatment they're going through and will need. That's part one. Part two is filing the lawsuit. And then part three is the discovery stage. That's where we exchange information, the information we have, and the person we're suing, they give us information. And that part can take the longest. And I know that can be frustrating for some clients. And then usually once discovery is complete, it can go one or two ways, actually three. we could either go to trial, we could do what's called summary judgment, and that's arguing the case on paper and the judge will make a ruling. Or sometimes we go straight to mediation, and that's where we have a neutral party, not a judge, someone who's either a lawyer or usually a retired judge, and we'll try and negotiate, we'll explain our side of the case. The person we're suing will explain their side of the case, and we try and come up with a resolution. And if that doesn't work, then we usually go to trial. But I'd say at least 80% of my cases, they resolve without having to go to trial. And that's the basic gist of the process.
And I'm sure if it goes to trial, then that's when costs go up and the amount of time goes up and all of that. Okay. So what do you think are some of the biggest maybe fears or concerns that you encounter with clients in cases? You said communication was a big deal, but is it common for someone to come in, well, I just want this to be the outcome, or as long as this gets resolved or this doesn't happen, then I'll be okay with how it turns out?
Right. Sometimes, when you go in to meet with an attorney and you could be severely injured, it wasn't your fault at all. Say you were rear-ended and the person that hit you doesn't have insurance, and they have no assets. There's no money to go after. And unfortunately, in those situations, we're really, really limited as to what we recover. And it's heartbreaking for both sides. So having an expectation that I need, X amount of dollars and everything will be good is not always realistic. Okay.
Yeah, I can see where that would be tough, especially if you have medical bills or something like that they're dealing with.
And another thing that I always tell my clients too is you have to be very careful now moving forward. Now, you always want to make sure you have enough insurance yourself. That those types of situations, say it's a car accident, you're covered. You will still be able to receive some type of compensation, even if the other party doesn't have insurance.
Yeah. Okay. So these types of events can be really, really big transitions for people. It's it could be life changing. So I'm curious, how you personally help people get through such a big transition. I'm sure maybe expectations is part of that and setting expectations. But I'm curious what your take is on that and helping them to get through the ordeal.
Sure. I'm lucky enough that I've worked with a lot of experts, whether it be doctors who will treat them physically, or there's a whole emotional aspect that goes in. There's a lot to process. So sometimes just having the right person and professional to talk to can make a big difference in how someone's case goes. And, I deal with a lot of severely injured people who have gone through traumatic experiences, and their lives have completely changed. They went from working, 50-hour work weeks, and now they're just stuck in bed. So being able to have the right resources for them to reach out to is critical.
And have you found it important, in addition, after you've successfully helped a client, to kind of guide them or lead them in a direction to say, okay, well, we've had the best outcome that we could. And after this, now you have to plan the rest of your life, right? These are your resources. You have to plan the rest of your life. So how important, or is that just as important as getting them the outcome that they want? Because if they're younger when these things happen to them, this money may have to sustain them for decades, right?
Correct. So prior to even settling the case, I will meet with my client and financial experts who will help us decide what will be the best course of action. And whether it be setting up an annuity so that their money will grow and it'll help plan for the future, or set up different trusts, or even financial planners who will help them, is it best to buy a property to invest their money in right now? Some my clients they're completely disabled now. So the house they're living in isn't practical anymore. It's not handicap accessible. So is it worth, having to buy a new house at this point? So we'll try and help them find the right experts and guide them through our experience of dealing with people who have gone through a similar situation.
Okay, great. That's good. Thank you for that. So let's shift gears just a little bit. I'm curious, kind of what you see personally as being the biggest opportunity for you going forward, either, the firm that you're affiliated with or for you. What direction are you shooting for? Where are you headed, Kristina?
Life is short. So I like to work hard and play hard and make the most of my time. Seeing my clients, life can change in an instant. So that's one of the reasons why I moved back to Florida is, it's a little bit more laid back.
Mm-hmm. A little bit?
A little bit. I feel like, especially, I don't know. Well, when I first moved to Florida for law school, my friends and I were in class, and they're like, "Why are you running?"
Yeah.
I'm like, "What do you mean? Why am I running? This is just how I walk." Like, they're just,
right.
Much little slower pace of life. But I think it's important to make smart choices in terms of investing whatever money's received from helping clients or just, having a plan for the future. I listen very carefully when my clients' financial advisors talk, and I take that to heart too. I'm trying to practice what they preach and what I preach to my clients.
Yeah.
And it's a difference because you want to be able to enjoy life the most. So
right. Okay.
That's the plan. Work hard to play hard.
All right, great. Maybe that's the title for this episode. I have to come up with a title every time, so that could be our title. All right. Now, on the flip side of that, Kristina, this could be tougher. What do you kind of see as a challenge or an obstacle or something like that you want to overcome?
Sure. I'd say in terms of for litigation purposes, the courts have started to get a lot more strict in terms of their timelines, which is a good thing and a bad thing. It's good because it helps move the cases along, but sometimes these timelines are just not realistic. Every case is different. Sometimes it takes a lot longer to get the discovery part completed, and the judges, even if you have good relationships with the judges and they understand, a lot of judges have practice in this area, they're limited by how much time they can extend because it's coming from the top. It's coming from the Supreme Court. Yeah. So that's a big challenge, is trying to wrangle the time frame in. And we do our best. We have our ways. My staff is very good at being persistent to try and get records that we need, or cooperating with counsel to try and get things done. But sometimes it just doesn't happen.
Okay. And how about for you, like personally? Now, I don't mean like your personal life, but I mean, from a professional standpoint.
Sure. Sometimes it's hard to separate work from home. My mind will go at night thinking like, oh, maybe we should have argued this, or we should have argued that at the time. Or also sometimes when you see, really, really rough cases, especially I've had cases where kids were severely injured. It's heartbreaking. It's really tough, and that takes a toll on you emotionally. And that's tough for me.
Yeah, I can see that. Okay. I appreciate your honesty there. So if people want to learn more about you or get in touch, they want to contact you, what is the best way for them to do that?
I give all of my clients my direct cell phone line. So my number is 718-986-8170. And I will answer the phone if I'm able to, or if not, I'll call you right back. And I don't believe in putting any barriers between communication or getting messages. Just call me, text me. I'm here, and I'll get back to you.
That's right. We have enough firewalls in our society and in the way of everything, right?
Yeah.
Get in touch with somebody. That's helpful. Awesome. Well, Kristina, I want to thank you for taking the time to be here with me today. It's been a pleasure to talk with you. And I want to thank everybody for tuning in today to the Confident Retirement Podcast, where we are hoping to raise the financial competence of everyday people to another level, one show at a time. Thanks again, Kristina, for being here.
My pleasure. Thank you.
And thanks, everybody, for tuning in. We will talk to you next time. We'll see you next time. Be well, take care, and we're out.
You've been listening to the Confident Retirement Podcast with Chris and Mark from LPF Advisors. For more information on them and retiring confidently, please visit lpfadvisors.com. If your ears are pleased and your mind is now at ease, do share the program with your friends and subscribe wherever podcasts are found.